What if I told you that the device in your pocket wasn't just an evolution, but a full-blown revolution? Today, we're going to unpack the story of the iPhone, how it went from being just a single cool product to changing, well, pretty much everything. So here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start in a world that existed before the iPhone. Then we'll watch as it just explodes from a device into a massive platform. From there, we'll see it get smarter, become a legit professional tool, and finally, we'll ask the big question, what's next? To really, truly get the iPhone's impact, you first have to kind of transport yourself back in time. Let's remember the world it was born into. So picture it. The year is 2006, and phones are, well, they're different. Very different.
No, seriously, try to remember. What did your phone actually look like back then? It probably had a tiny little screen, right? A physical keyboard you had to peck at with your thumbs, and a web browser that was, let's be honest, a complete pain to use. They were phones, yeah, but they were so limited.
See, before 2007, our pockets were a cluttered mess. You had your phone for calls, you had a separate MP3 player for music, maybe you even had a PDA for your calendar. It was all fragmented. The iPhone's promise was this idea of radical simplicity. It said, hey, let's take all those separate gadgets and just merge them into one beautiful device with a huge screen, the real internet, and all of your music.
And that was the magic trick, wasn't it? The one Steve Jobs pulled off on stage in 2007. He wasn't just selling a better phone, he was selling a whole new category of device. And that single idea, convergence, that one device could be your phone, your iPod, and your internet communicator, that became the bedrock for absolutely everything that followed. But here's the thing. As revolutionary as that hardware was, it was still basically a closed box. The iPhone's next giant leap wasn't about the physical device at all. It was about unlocking its potential by turning it from just a product into a platform. Just 1 year later, in 2008, came the absolute masterstroke, the App Store. Think about what that meant. Apple essentially handed the keys to the kingdom over to developers everywhere. And all of a sudden, the iPhone's potential wasn't limited by Apple's imagination anymore. It was only limited by the imagination of millions of creative people around the world. And the response? Oh, it was just staggering. 500 million, that's billion with a B, downloads in the first year alone. This wasn't some slow burn. It was a wildfire. It was all the proof anyone needed that we didn't just want our phones to make calls. We wanted them to do things.
And what kind of things? Well, pretty much everything. Overnight, your phone became your portable game console. It became your wallet. It became your GPS navigator, your gateway to social media, even your personal trainer. The very definition of what a phone was even for had been completely and permanently rewritten.
Okay, so the hardware was set, the App Store was absolutely booming. The next big phase in this story was all about refinement. It was about making the iPhone smarter, making it faster, and weaving it so deeply into our lives that we'd eventually wonder how we ever managed without it. A massive leap here was the Retina display, which showed up on the iPhone 4. The goal wasn't just to cram in more pixels. The real goal was to make the pixels themselves totally invisible to your eye. And the result? The technology just kind of disappears, right? You're left with text and images that look as sharp and clean as ink on a printed page. It made the simple act of looking at your phone a fundamentally better experience.
Then, in 2011, our relationship with our phone changed in a really fundamental way. With Siri, the iPhone went from being this passive tool that we just tapped on to an active assistant that we could actually talk to. For the very first time, your phone could talk back. And as our phones became the center of our digital lives, keeping them secure became absolutely critical. The way we unlock the iPhone tells that story perfectly. We went from that simple slide to a passcode, but the real magic started with Touch ID and Face ID. The trend was obvious. Security got stronger by getting more personal, more effortless, using the one thing you always have with you. You.
And that brings us to the modern era. This period is really defined by two huge shifts. First, a radical new design, and second, a strategy to make an iPhone for literally everyone. The iPhone X in 2017, that was a seismic moment. By getting rid of that iconic home button, Apple created this edge-to-edge screen experience that just felt like you were holding the future. It set a new design language that, honestly, the entire industry is still following today. It was a huge bet on a new way to interact with your phone, and boy, did it pay off. At the same time, Apple totally changed its one-size-fits-all game plan. The iPhone lineup split into different tiers. You have the top-of-the-line Pro models for power users, the standard model for most of us, and then the SE as a really powerful entry point. This wasn't just about giving people choice. It was a smart strategy to make the iPhone ecosystem accessible to almost any budget, which really cemented its place in the market.
And nowhere is that pro shift more obvious than with the camera. I mean, just look at this. Think about it. The iPhone 3G had a 2-megapixel sensor that couldn't even shoot video. Fast forward to today, and the iPhone 15 Pro has a 48-megapixel system that shoots in 4K cinematic mode. The camera has transformed from a simple point-and-shoot into a legitimate, professional-grade filmmaking tool that you can just carry around in your pocket. It's wild.
So, after this incredible journey, where does that leave us? Well, the iPhone has completely transformed from a clever little gadget into a true pocket supercomputer, something that's totally essential to how we live and navigate the world.
So let's just trace that journey one last time. It all began with the 2007 launch that put 3 devices into one. Then it became a platform in 2008 with the App Store. It started talking back in 2011 with Siri. It gave us a glimpse of the future in 2017 with the iPhone X. And today, it's a full-on professional creative tool.
When you put it all together, the iPhone's evolution isn't just a story about technology. It's really a story about how a device can become so personal and so capable that it stops feeling like a tool you use and starts feeling like an essential extension of yourself. Which leaves us with a final, big question to think about. The iPhone proved that 3 separate devices could become one. So as things like augmented reality, AI, and wearables keep getting better and blending into our lives, what do you think the next great convergence will be? What is the one device of tomorrow?